Hello there, little one. Welcome to Dream with the Sea, a bedtime story podcast filled with tales from across Southeast Asia. This podcast is brought to you by Supermom, your trusted smart village for modern motherhood. Are you tucked in and ready to dream with the sea tonight? Good. Let's get your body ready for sleep. Start by wiggling your toes, just a little, and then let them rest. Now your fingers. Give them a soft little stretch and let them go still. Let your shoulders sink down, away from your ears, nice and soft. And let your head feel heavy on the pillow, as if the pillow is giving you a gentle hug. Now we are going to take 3 slow breaths together. Breathe in through your nose. 1, 2, 3. And let it out slowly, like a tiny breeze. Again, breathe in. 1, 2, 3. And out, nice and slow. One more time. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3. And breathe out. Lovely. It is now story time. Close your eyes. Get comfortable. And let tonight's story begin. A long, long time ago, before Singapore had its name, the island was called Temasek. It was a quiet, green island, covered in thick jungle that reached all the way to the sea. Not many people lived there then, just the trees, the birds, and the sound of the waves. But tonight's story is not about the island. Tonight's story begins far away, across the water, in a kingdom called Palembang. In that kingdom there lived a young prince called Sang Nila Utama. We will call him Nila. Nila was bold and adventurous. He liked to ride horses, hunt in the forests, and he loved to sail. He would stand at the harbor and watch the trading ships come and go, their sails fat with wind, and he would wonder what lay beyond the waves. One morning, Nila went to see his advisor, an older man who had served the kingdom for many, many years. "I want to see what is out there," Nila said, "beyond the sea. I want to find new land." His advisor studied him for a long moment. Then he gave a slow nod. "Then we shall go," the advisor said. "I will gather the ships." Within days, a fleet of boats was ready, strong boats with wide sails and carved wooden bows. Nila stood at the front of the largest ship, the wind in his hair, the salt air on his face. On his head, he wore his crown, golden and heavy, the crown of a prince. And they sailed. The sea was calm at first. The sky was wide and blue. The boats cut through the water easily, and the men sang as they rowed. Nila watched the horizon, waiting, wondering. They passed small islands. They passed fishing boats bobbing gently in the swells. The advisor sat near the back of the ship, watching the clouds. "The wind is changing," the advisor said. Nila looked up. The clouds that had been white and soft were now gathering together, growing taller, turning gray. The wind came first. It snapped the sails and pulled at the ropes. Then the rain, heavy, thick rain that fell sideways and stung the skin. The waves grew taller, taller than the sides of the ship. The boat tilted. Water crashed over the deck. The men grabbed the masts and held on. "Hold steady," Nila shouted. But the boat was heavy, too heavy. The waves kept climbing over the sides, and the ship began to sink lower and lower into the water. "Throw the cargo," the advisor called out. The men moved quickly. They threw sacks of rice over the side. They threw rolls of silk. They threw crates of spices and bundles of cloth. Anything they could lift, they sent it into the sea. But the storm did not stop. The boat was lighter now, but the waves were still growing. The ship groaned and dipped again. Water poured in faster than the men could throw things out. They threw the cooking pots. They threw the ropes they did not need. They threw everything they could possibly manage without. Their lives were more important than anything they carried. But still, the boat kept sinking. The men looked at one another. There was nothing left to throw. The advisor came forward. He stood beside Nila in the rain and the wind. "My prince," he said, "your crown. It is the heaviest thing left on this ship." Nila's hand went to his head, his crown, the golden crown of Palembang. It was the mark of who he was, a prince, a leader, a son of kings. The old stories said that Nila was a descendant of the Sea King's daughter, that the sea ran in his blood. Perhaps, the advisor thought, if the prince gave something back to the sea would let them pass. Nila held the crown in his hands. It was heavy. It was cold with rain. He turned toward the water, and he threw it. The crown disappeared beneath the dark water, and as it sank, the storm began to fade. The wind stopped pulling. The rain grew thin, then stopped. The waves, slowly, gently, lay down. The men stood on the deck, soaking wet, breathing hard. The sky was still gray, but along the edges it had begun to glow, the way it does when the sun is trying to come back. The advisor came and stood beside Nila. His robes were heavy with rain. He looked out at the sea, now smooth and breathing gently. "Look," the advisor said, and there it was. An island, low and green, covered in jungle so thick it looked like a wall of leaves. White sand stretched along the shore. Behind it, the trees rose tall and dark against the clearing sky. "Temasek." "We go ashore," Nila said. They pulled the boats onto the sand and stepped onto the island. The ground was soft. The air was warm and heavy and smelled of wet earth and flowers. Nila looked around. The trees were enormous, their roots twisting above the ground like sleeping snakes. Vines hung from every branch. Somewhere deeper in the jungle, water was running. Nila wanted to see more. He gathered a small group of men, and they walked into the jungle. They moved slowly, pushing through thick ferns and stepping over roots. The light came through the canopy in golden patches, and everything was green. They were following a narrow path when one of the men stopped. "My prince," the man whispered. "Look, there, by the rocks." Nila stopped. He looked ahead. Standing at the edge of a clearing was a creature Nila had never seen before. It was large, larger than a deer, larger than a dog. It stood still and proud, its body powerful and sleek. Its fur was deep, dark, reddish-orange, and around its head, a thick, golden mane, like a crown made of sunlight. The creature turned its head and looked straight at Nila. Its eyes were steady and calm. Nila felt his breath leave his chest. He had never seen anything like it. He did not know what it was, but something about the creature, The way it stood, the way it looked at him, without flinching, made Nila feel that this island was not just any island. This island was something special, and perhaps, Nila thought, he had given up his crown on the sea, only to find a creature that wore one of its own. The creature held his gaze for a long, still moment. Then it turned and walked slowly into the jungle, its golden mane disappearing into the green. Nobody moved. Then Nila turned to his advice. "What was that creature?" he asked. "I have heard stories," the advisor said, "from the old sailors. They spoke of a creature called a lion." "A lion," Nila repeated. He turned back to the jungle. The creature was gone, but the feeling it left behind was still there, like warmth from a fire that has gone out. Nila stood tall. He looked at the trees. He looked at the sand. He looked at the sea beyond. "This island has a lion," Nila said, "and from this day, this island will have a new name. Singapura. Singa, meaning lion. Pura, meaning city. The Lion City. And that is how Singapore got its name. From a prince who gave his crown to the sea, walked into a jungle, and came face to face with a creature that wore a crown of its own." That is all for tonight's story. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the bed bugs bite.